All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to a Helium Network live stream, which will contain talking points to start with, followed by a section of Q&A. So please hold your questions until then. Got some comments that said like a little more structure in these. So I'm going to start out with some talking points to get us going. So first thing is like, well, where do we get miners? Because that's something that always changes. So we'll go through the different manufacturers and get some comments on that. So this week, CalChip had some interesting news. They're going to cut orders to 250 a day. Now, I don't have details on how and when you would purchase that, like when you'd be able to, you wait till midnight. Do you have to, I don't know. So how are they going to create purchase equity? And then as also like even like around the world, US, EU, wherever else, that's going to be an interesting problem to deal with. But it does sound like orders will resume normal levels in June. So that's something to think about. Also, Nebra. So I'm just going to read this quote from their latest update. Currently, we're planning to reopen pre-orders at the beginning of June. You can sign up for stock notifications via the miner product pages, and you'll be emailed as soon as pre-orders open. So looking at their backlog, which I really love that they keep their batches just right front and center there on their site. So it looks like they're still booked till August or Q3 with existing orders. So that's some interesting insight. All right, Bobcat. So I think the feedback has been clear about the issues with MugglePay. I'm still seeing some orders come through as far as referrals. So I think they're still making it work. It's just that people have been pretty frustrated with that process. So they're looking into how to make that purchase process easier, but no details as of yet. As far as Syncrobit, they are taking orders, and I even doing some searching around, I saw some bulk order price points as well. So when I hear bulk orders, I'm like, whoa, well, that's interesting. There's a future there as well. They're thinking still about a large amount of supply. I'm unsure of the shipping cadence at this time as far as how often they're going to order or how often they're going to ship out. I know that they have more details of probably all the manufacturers. I've followed this one the least, and that's my fault. That's on me. So definitely still want to get involved in that and get up to speed. I did send them a message actually just today, and they of course haven't responded because all of these manufacturers are super busy. So just inquiring, hey, is there any way that I can get one of these to demo and all that kind of stuff, and then asking about the people's hotspot, and then so on and so forth. So waiting anxiously for that reply. The other one is light gateways. So it might be good to start looking at with light gateways coming online, with the validators coming soon. They're going to be cheaper, and then fingers crossed, hopefully more abundant in supply. So maybe at this point, it might be good to start thinking about, where do I buy light gateways? That's pretty important to think about. As we're getting more miners, and if you can scale rapidly using light gateways, that actually might be better. So something to think about. Again, we don't have all the details on light gateways yet, but that's kind of what I've got so far. I do still have in my plans to dedicate an episode to light gateways and validators specifically. All right, next section is support. So just thinking about what are the predominant support issues that I've ran into since the last live stream or in the last couple of weeks. So I haven't come across too many of the memory issues that have been mentioned on the Helium announcements. I know that they're working on it, and they provided multiple updates. So that's really important in their minds is to address the memory issues. If you're not aware of this, there's some, I don't know, 2,000 miners or something like that that have been affected by these memory issues. So it kind of dwindling amounts of memory that are available, and then they got to kind of somehow rework it or need a reboot or something like that to get access back to that memory. It's very problematic though, and they fall offline pretty quickly. Also, I'm seeing a lot of, hey, I tried everything that you said in your video to fix relay, and it's still no luck. And the general comments around that have been that they've just bought a new router and that solved the problem. Bought a new router or talked with their ISP. That's been a pretty common thing. And if you are still struggling with that, go back and look at that video that I did on relays. Also check the comments. There's a pinned comment and the description. They have some extra details in there that you definitely want to check out to fix the relay. All right, next is YouTube commentary. So just looking at all my comments on my YouTube channel, what things have been coming up as issues. So I've seen a lot of great constructive feedback for the materials on my grounding installation. So I'm going to go back and make some changes. I don't think I'll make a video around that just yet. I'll probably wait for some more feedback, but I will update my comments. That pinned comment in the description, or that pinned comment on the grounding materials video, I will tell all of those things, which how wrong I was or what I needed to flip. So make sure that you're checking that if you're doing grounding. I've also seen multiple comments on the length of my cable and the dBi loss. I absolutely know that. At this point, I do have enough miners to start some more testing and test with a shorter cable again. So I've only tested for a few days now, and the earnings actually haven't been much better with the shorter cable. I'm really surprised on this. I was thinking that it would be dramatic difference. I've picked up maybe one more witness, and I'm still on the 8 dBi right now, but then I'll transition to testing with the rack 5.8 very soon. So besides experimenting with antennas, I've also added some UPS to my setup to try and keep the whole setup going in the event of a power loss. So I realized in reviewing that I found one more weak point in my system in how my ISP connects to my router or my cable modem. So I've got to figure out how to make that make sure that stays up, as it's currently using an amplifier because of a long cable run. So I might have to reroute some cables there or something like that, or maybe purchase another UPS for that. All right, next is commentary on the people's hotspot. Where are they and what have they been doing? So Puny Pecan Eel is currently in Massachusetts. Even though it's got a proximity score of 0.5, it's doing better than I expected. So remember that proximity score is how close you are to other miners. For the eel, it's cutting the earnings in half. So they would be double normally if there wasn't miners around. So far, or at least in the last 2 weeks, it's mined about 22 HNT. So that's pretty good. We have Funny Gray Seal is currently in Maryland, and the host has been working through their setup. And after testing the antenna, they switched to the rack 5.8, and the black one, which is it's just super sweet looking. They just upgraded their cable to an LMR 400, and they're still testing, but it just doesn't look good for reaching nearby hosts. So it's a good time to mention that lone wolves like this, they won't get any earnings in the future, because all these challenges are shifting to validators along with consensus. So there needs to be proof of your coverage to get rewarded. Discovery mode might help in this case, which if you don't know what that is, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. So stay tuned here. All right, next section is think tank and some speculations. Um, where are we heading soon? So I want to caveat this in that this is a little bit of speculation on where we're headed. Um, I could be very wrong in what I'm saying, so I want to just take this with a grain of salt here. So, will there be much need for heavy gateways post validators? I don't know. I mean, the gateways will function, but what are they going to do? You know, should we just all switch to light gateways, or is there still the market for heavy gateways? Um, are the current gateways that we use, are they going to act like mini validators for light gateways or packet forwarders? Or some very obscure thought I've had is there any chance to harness that little bit of CPU processing power for something else? Maybe you could mine another cryptocurrency via there. Maybe there's some other mechanic that's going to be processed. I don't know. So something to think about as we go forward is what that CPU little bit of CPU processing power will do. As far as 5G, that is still pretty light in details. From my research on the on 5G so far, just in the last week, and just a little bit of digging I've done, is that there sounds like there will be indoor and outdoor miners for that. Um, One of the biggest problems is getting 5G indoors. So it doesn't go through trees, obstructions, and house walls very well at all. So you're lucky if you have the miner inside your home, you're going to be lucky if the signal gets outside of your home for a few blocks. So if you do go outside with your antenna or your miner, then you may run into local regulations about wireless communication. So at least at this point, I want to be heavily speculative on that and encourage you right now that this is probably not for the faint of heart in embarking on this 5G journey. I think it's going to be a little more interesting to get into. All right, that's it for my speculations. Now for our special topic is discovery mode. So I'm going to talk about what's been creating the most buzz of late. So discovery mode. So I'm just going to read what I've gotten here so far. Discovery mode is a mode that puts your miner into a regular, unrewarded beacon mode. That fast feedback will allow you to walk around in your house or experiment with antenna changes via indoors or outdoors. So that's what the intention is. So I still, at this point, with the little information I have, I want to encourage you to turn off the power in between your antenna changes. I don't have enough information on how that's going to act in keeping in discovery mode and changing that antennas while the power is on. That might be a very bad thing to do. So we want to be very careful on that. So I think that this is some more information that will come out from Helium in the near term. So by analyzing the results in the Helium app during this discovery mode, you'll be able to determine best placement of your antenna. Please keep in mind that there are factors that may change over time. So weather, trees, other miners coming online in your area. But bottom line, discovery mode is not released yet. It will be soon, just like validators soon. So that's all I can say is soon. So yeah. All right. So that completes the kind of topics and talking points, which is great because I wanted to hit about 15 minutes, and we're at 14 minutes so far. So we're going to transition to the live Q&A. So if you have some questions, put them in the chat and I will get to them. Feel free to encourage me to keep moving along just by typing in the comments, next please, and then we'll go to the next. If you're watching this post live stream, then please don't comment on the comments with next please. I can't change the pace. So, all right. going over some questions here, so I'm just going to kind of scroll back in chat just to get a couple more. Um, Can't wait for my Nebras if they actually show up. They will. They're. I've seen lots of comments on or tweets about from Nebra about sending out their stuff right now. So it's looking really good for coming up soon. Should I buy more? I'm thinking Bobcat is the best right now. So I'd say refer back if you missed the comments on where to get miners. Go back in the stream after it's posted and check out those. But I think the decision point would be: do I want to try out light gateways and see what that is, and wait for it until they're available and then get my orders in early, or do I want to just get back in the queue with the regular heavy miners? Let's see. I'm looking for another question. How do you think my rewards will be with miners close, around 3 to 10 kilometers, with a Bobcat and a regular antenna? So I'm wondering if by regular antenna you mean stock antenna. So one of my friends, 4 dBi. Okay. So one of my friends is using the stock antenna, and he's gotten some witnesses from about over 8 kilometers away on the stock antenna. So, but so far he's only been able to receive signal. He hasn't been able to get out. And he's been indoors, and he's tried, moving it up to the top floor. So we've done the work to try and assess what we can do for getting an antenna outdoors on his house. And so he'll be taking that step in the next step. So I'm living on a 33 floor building apartment, almost 100 meters up. Do you think a 8 dBi is a good choice? Then 5.6 dBi. I'm not sure if you mean 5.6 or 5.8 dBi, or EU, US. Those are some important things to consider. So the 8 dBi is going to probably overshoot at 33 floors up. You're quite high. You're going to miss a lot of what's close to you. It might be worth it to try. I always recommend try both. There's such a great market for reselling antennas for once you figure out what it is, what's best for your setup, and then go from there. But I think the 5.8 would probably be a better one to start with. Yeah. If you have 2 miners, can you manage them in the same phone? Yes. Remember, you don't want to have them closer than 300 meters. It would be better to have it farther apart. So, but yes, you can manage them on the same phone. Keep in mind they are tied to the same wallet. So if that's a concern to you, you may want to have more than one wallet. So 1 miner per wallet or something like that. That's a personal preference. There's just some kind of security concerns that you may have when you do that. And so by having those separate, then you don't have all of your eggs in one basket, if you will, or your one HNT in one wallet. So something to think about there. Scrolling through. Have I tried the rack antenna stock cable that comes with the antenna? So with the rack antenna, unless you're getting the enclosure, there isn't a stock cable. It's just the rack and miner with the stock antenna that connects directly to it. So now I have tried the stock. I'm sorry, I was thinking about the miner. So if you get the rack antenna and the stock cable, I have had reports from one of the hosts of the People's Hotspot that the stock cable just isn't very good and has a lot of loss. I do have some, and I was actually using that for probably 3 months. 2-3 months outside even, and I don't think it's meant for long-term outside use. You'd be better with a different cable. So that's my feedback on that. Is there a difference between being relayed and not? Yes. So that takes longer to propagate the signals back and forth across the network. And then, of course, if you get elected to consensus, then it can hurt the whole consensus operations. If consensus gets elongated, then rewards slow down. So that would be a difference between being relayed and not. For anything that's like, would it work in this location? I would generally say that if it's relatively flat, you definitely don't want to go with like a high dBi antenna. It's better to go with lower, because then you get more. So think of it like a flashlight. Your 9 dBi is going to be very, very narrow beam flashlight, and then your 5.8 is going to be wider. And you think about the frequency too, is that and this is from what I've read or gotten comments on in my YouTube channel, that the frequency wavelengths are a lot bigger on the 5.8 than the 9 dBi would be like this. So that's something to think about. A bug screen, if you're overseas, I think there's less bug screens that I guess when I was living in Europe, I didn't see as many bug screens. So bug screens are very commonly used in the US. It's just basically so you can open the window and have air flow back and forth, but none of the bugs can get in. So the bug screen, though, why that's important is that it basically acts as like a fence for the signals coming through from your antenna inside to outside and back and forth. It's almost like squashing all ability for signal to traverse through the window. So if you are going to put your antenna in a window, make sure that you're taking the bug screen off. That helps your signal quality and get mining results up. All right, that's all I'm seeing on questions. If you've got some more questions in the chat, please put that out and I'll get to it. If your hotspot is within 300 meters of another, does that significantly reduce earnings? Do you know how that's calculated? So there is a formula for calculating that. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know that from my direct experiences, like when I'm testing one miner and then I come in with another miner and take it down, even though I turn off the power and there's only one miner active at a time, I will still get a temporary score of 0.5 right away. So they do invalidate if they stay up and communicate, then it's active and ongoing decrease in earnings. But I think if there's only technically one inbound and they're not witnessing each other, I think that the rewards keep going, even though it says 0.5. It's like a cautionary 0.5. So that's something to think about. But the more you get in, the more closer that it gets, the more it affects that proximity score. And it's important to think about the all the hex resolutions as important in that calculation as well. If you don't have a Helium miner around you, I would recommend either, if you can afford it, buy a few and get a bunch of people to host them. You want between 3 and 5. And I'll tell you that the HNT earnings, of course, for one, I'd say it's changed since my initial, the very first video I think that I did on this, where I said 10 HNT at one point. Well, now it's very much like either half or a third of that for a lone wolf. You're gonna make a lot more by getting 3 to 5 really high quality witnesses. And I really also recommend getting them with antennas, because if you just use the stock antennas, then you're going to have them closer to each other. And even this, I've been watching a couple of hotspots that have still struggled with this. They have the stock antenna. They're outside the 300 meter range, but it's almost about double. and they're still encountering signal too low invalidations of the witnessing. So it's important to think about not only placement, but then also antennas. And well, you could try upgrading your antenna and just keeping it indoors and seeing what happens, or you can go ahead and take the leap and move the antenna outside as well. And just a quick shill of my outdoor antenna videos, you definitely want to recommend that you check those out. That will help your earnings do well, and all of that type of thing. 10 kilometers on a stock antenna is totally doable. I think I've heard of even more than that on a stock antenna. They're actually pretty good, but it's something to think about, whether you want to keep with the stock antenna or not. Height always helps. That's the one thing I've heard of people putting their miners, if they can get internet and power up there, they'll put them up in their attic, because it can still get through the roofing materials. One thing to think about with this, the lower band frequencies, is that it's very high, so it tends to be more punchy. Whereas with the 5G, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it's like 470 or something like that. So it's not very punchy. So thanks for coming in, Dave. I appreciate you watching and the questions. If there are other miners to the west of me, but none to the east, would a directional antenna be beneficial? Sure. It depends on how wide of how wide it's going to communicate in one direction. I haven't experimented with anything with directional antennas yet, so I can't say for sure whether it would be beneficial or not. I keep getting questions on, can I mix antennas as well, and I like have two different kinds of antennas. Well, it's possible. I've always heard the dBi loss. I think if it's anything like coax, every time you split coax, you're dividing your signal. So you got to think about what it's going to take to keep that up and going. So thanks for the stream. Have you bought from Bobcat? I've not bought from Bobcat yet. The miner that I got was sent to me because of the YouTube influencer status. So I have not. I am looking forward to checking out their next setup. I don't understand all the crypto side of things as well. So and they've provided videos about it as well. So I'm not too concerned in that degree, because there's walkthrough videos. You just got to pay attention and do those things. So I'm not too concerned with where the miners are coming from. Bobcat seems like, as well as all the manufacturers, they're doing the best of their ability to provide miners. So I think it's a trustworthy transaction. Obviously, there can be hiccups, and there have been mistakes as far as underpayments, overpayments, not getting the transfer fees right, all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Can I put my indoor miner in an outdoor box? Yes, you can. I definitely recommend that you would put it in an enclosure that is best, that is more protective of the miner, because it's just going to be better for your miner. If it goes down and that's your only miner, then you're not going to be able to mine anymore if it breaks. So we really recommend that you have it. If you're just doing something temporary and you want to see what it's like, probably a $20 enclosure, $40 enclosure from Amazon will be fine. I'm actually using that at the moment to test out some things. Yeah, so that's how I'd kind of approach enclosures. Can the Helium miner reach 5 miles? Yes, definitely. 5 miles is totally doable. I had a friend that was using a 9 dBi antenna, and then there was an 8 dBi antenna 30 kilometers away, and they were able to go back and forth both ways. So that was good. Evil, there was a question on discovery mode, or I talked about discovery mode earlier in the stream, so you'll want to go back and listen to that section. I have looked into the health implications of miners, and there hasn't been too much other than you want to stay about 20 centimeters away from the apparatus that emits the signal. That's the guidance from whatever the manufacturer is, and FCC, I believe. All right. Should I put an outdoor box and then should I caulk the hole that the antenna goes through? Yes, definitely. You should check that out and put that in there. If it's only temporary, then I wouldn't do it. But if it's long term, then yeah, definitely put some protective sealant around that hole to make sure that that no moisture can get inside your house. Is the X formation of the miners the most profitable? I've heard that actually the doing things in a hexagon, a square or hexagon, pentagon, that kind of thing, would be the most profitable. Can you hook your miner to your phone and drive around with the miner? No, you can't, because you have to assert the location of the miner. If you drive around with it, it won't be able to. It's going to invalidate your earnings because it expects a certain location to emit from that. So when your hotspot is emitting signal, so definitely would recommend you not do that at this point. Now, there is a chance in the future that if it's very profitable, or say that there's a automobile that is kind of like an Uber, that maybe it's even autonomous, that it could sit right, come up to your house, park next to your house, assert the location on the miner, and then use its battery to provide service while it's not running. So that would be an interesting application of how they could be done with cars. But that would be it'd have to be profitable for them to do that, to pay for the assertion on the location and so on and so forth. Is it worth it putting all your money into helium miners? 15 years old and really wanted to get into it. I wouldn't put all your money into it. Yeah, I think like Cryptechnology says, do your research and get one, or even start free. There are plenty of hosting companies out there that are providing miners for free, and then you can do some testing with it, see if it works for you. Maybe it's not going to work for you in the long term, or maybe I'd hate for you to spend all that money to get all these miners and then either have no hosts to host them, or someone moves in close to you and then you can't, and then your earnings go down as well. What was the number one thing I did to improve my mining rate? Number one thing was getting my antenna outside. 100%. I went for weeks, way too long, without getting my antenna outside, and I wish I could have done that differently, because it was literally 20 to 40 HNT a day that I was missing out on that I didn't even know. And it could still happen again if I change my antenna and figure out that I could have used a different antenna and increased my own earnings. So I'm still testing that part, or I'm about to test that part. And boy, I'm going to have a little judge party on myself if it turns out that I could have been mining double by having a different antenna. I'm going to be pretty sad. So Yeah. Number one thing was to get that antenna outside, and then of course as high as possible. And I kind of did both at once. I'm like, oh, here's the mast, here's the antenna outside. Let's see what it does. And definitely was very helpful. What antennas have I used in my current setup? So I've used the stock antenna for the OG. I've used this. Well, one of my hosts has used the stock antenna for the rack and had decent results on that. I've used the rack 8 dBi, which has been my base for pretty much this entire time. I did use the Nielsen 9, and the earnings were just not as great as I thought that they could be. And when I changed back to the 8, they got better. So the Nielsen just doesn't work for where I'm at right now. And then I have actually back, if you can see, I have the 3 dBi and also the 5.8 dBi that I'm still going to test with. Does weather conditions affect mining? I believe it does. I think that the signals bounce off of a cloud deck, so I think I get better results on cloudy days, but I could totally be wrong in that. Yeah. Let's see here. I think I might have missed where are good places to buy the LMR 400 cable? So I use USA Coax and do custom builds from them. I know that there's other cables on Amazon. It's fine. I'd be like, if you have other places, if any of the followers want to put links to them, I don't mind encouraging and posting those for more people to get them. I know that even overseas, they've asked for locations to get LMR 400 overseas as well. So, yeah. Do you need to assert your location on that? No, unless the antenna changes like quite a bunch. Like the location of the antenna changes a bunch, you wouldn't necessarily need to change the location. However, there is, and I talked about in my most recent unboxing video, that there is antenna information that should be put alongside when you assert. So it's just like asserting your location. You can also assert your antenna information. And right now it's not required, but I do believe that it will be helpful for and used in the calculations for proof of coverage in the future. But yes, I use USA Coax for all my cables today. They have really quick shipping too. So where did I exit the house with my antenna wire? So that is that's covered on the video that I did with outdoor setup. So I just went through the wall. I know that there are different ways you can do it so that's on what I did with my house, but then on another house that I did an installation at, there was actually space enough to thread right next to the air conditioning. There was a bunch of cables going through, and I just kind of said, well, is there a lot of wiggle space in there? And so I was able to thread the cable through that existing hole in the house. So if you can go through an existing hole, that's so much better. Because if it ends up that I should have had the miner out in an enclosure the entire time for the most earnings, well, then maybe I shouldn't have drilled that hole in the first place. So again, try and do the least damaging setups to do your testing. Do you know any Helium miner hosting companies? I think in my introduction video and then my why are my earnings low, I put links to as many of them as I could as far as hosting companies. Do your research on them though. Some of them have capped earnings, others don't. Others are invite only. So there's a lot to research on there. The shorter antenna cable, the better. Yes, although my testing results so far over the last few days have said that there's no difference right now, and I don't know if that's due to the punchiness of the frequency. I'm not sure. So I'm looking for another question here. Lightning protection. Yes, I cover grounding and all that kind of stuff on there. So not only a lightning arrestor, but you also want grounding your mast. And there's even some things that I'm going to post that I got some comments just like 2 days ago about other things I could do to improve my grounding setup. So again, check the comments, the pinned comment on that video. I bought a miner off someone and the miner already hit consensus. Does this mean it won't get hit again? So a miner can be elected to consensus until validators come. You can get consensus multiple times in the same time frame. So it can still, until validators come, you can get consensus multiple times. I think for my first hotspot, I think I got elected to consensus 2 times, and then 2 times with another one, and once with another one. So it is pretty rare, but it and then it usually lasts. I've seen like never like, how do I say this? I've gotten rewarded with HNT twice in a row. And then there was one time where it went on for like seriously like 2 or 3 hours, maybe even longer. And it just kept hitting. And I was like, it was super awesome. Cause I think I woke up that morning and I was like, oh my gosh, that was like $1,500 worth of crypto that I got in just a few hours span. So that was really cool. That does not happen very often at all. So, but yes, you can get elected multiple times. No, the halving's not postponed. That's I think one of the things of crypto that will not change. The halvings are they're just in there, and that's what it's going to be. You can't change them. Bobcat's external antenna, is that weatherproof? No, it's not. You do not want to use that outside. It's not intended for it. It actually, the top part screws off, and then it's just a little screw apparatus on there that could corrode. So you definitely don't want to use that outside. Am I planning on converting HNT to stablecoin or holding HNT? I'm not going to comment on individual investment decisions. I think that you gotta determine what you're going to do with your own crypto. So that's what I'll answer on that. How long is the standard Bobcat antenna cable? It's about 4 feet long, I think. How many miners can you put on your account? I think there's technically a limit of 99, or at least that's what Emirate has run into. Anything more, and it kind of acts really weird. So, and again, I talked about that earlier, that sometimes you actually might want to just have one or only a few miners per wallet to just kind of not put all your HNT in one wallet. Any recommendations for an outdoor Bobcat antenna? I get this question a lot. Will this antenna work with my Bobcat? I talked about it in the last stream, I think, or at least the one on antennas, is that these antennas are intended to work with, as long as they match with the frequency, they're intended to work for any helium miners. So it doesn't matter whether you use a rack antenna on a Nebra or a rack antenna on a Bobcat. They should all work. All right. I think we're drawing to a close. So thank you for all your questions and supporting of this great community of the People's Network. I'd like to encourage you to get involved by helping answer some questions others ask in the comments on my channel. Get on the Helium Discord, participate in the discussion. This is where I learned all of this information. Is doing this and reading links on there, getting connected to other people. Sorting it out for myself. So if you have comments, I totally welcome those comments in the live stream after it's done and posted. Please think about what did you like? What did you not like? Are there any suggestions that you would have? So thanks again for watching, and please remember to do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I am going to drop a link in the description on the kind of course that I created on Helium that will go through all the videos that I've done to this point and continue to curate that as we go forward. And then of course have my referral links as those always help as well. So till next time, peace.